Hello, I'm Mish, and I invite you in today to be inspired, invigorated, and nourished. This podcast, in her own way, is for women who are ready to empower themselves to live an aligned life that is unapologetic, rich, and radiant. An open discussion that is transparent about the struggles, tips, and stories of women who have come to live in their own truth, power, and sense of self. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here and with me on this journey. Ladies, this is for you. An honest conversation about detoxing from dieting, from restrictive eating, from deprivation, from binge eating, from every facet, crevice of a negative relationship with food, exercise, body image, self-image. We are talking about it today with the beautiful Elisabeth Smith, who is a multifaceted entrepreneur and is going to be bringing you so many truths. She is actually my eating coach. Do people have eating coaches? Yes, I actually do have an eating coach. And what she has done for me has given me deep permission to just love myself, love food, love the journey. Everything that I've been searching for over the past probably 2 decades, I have found it in what she has brought. So this conversation is completely raw, completely honest, and I really hope, my hope is that it starts to turn the wheels in your mind to really releasing all of the bondage that food has with so many of us as women. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right. Well, I brought Elisabeth Smith back on this podcast because I freaking love you. I feel like you are a beacon of hope and light and authenticity that this world, especially women, we're going to just paint the brush with women today. Men can also appreciate you as well. For women, especially in the area of dieting, body image, self-trust, nutrition, etc. Well, you were one of my first podcasts I launched with, and people loved it. I got so many messages about you wanting to say, I want to know more from Elisabeth. I want to hear more from her. So I brought you back. So we were talking earlier, and I feel like the topic that we can kind of talk about is this idea of detox from dieting. I'm actually going to say that dieting is terrible and mindful eating is totally good. Dieting is terrible. It's awful. It's just a horrible way to lay a foundation around food. It's a terrible thing to do. And yeah, I'm actually going to be that bold. I'm not even going to say, well, some diets or some this or some that. It's like, no, any sort of like crazy restriction where you're not living a full life in that moment, you might need to cut things out because you feel better, but that's an intuitiveness. But like restrictive dieting is terrible. Where do we start with this, Elisabeth? I mean, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do now as in your coaching, and then we can kind of just kind of marinate through it because there's so much to talk about.
So I coach. I'm a personal coach and soon to be certified holistic nutritionist in the state of Maryland in the U.S. And I follow a completely non-diet approach. I don't put my clients on any kind of specific diet. We don't restrict foods. They have permission to eat anything that they want, anytime they want, wherever they want. There's no restriction around anything. So what I find though is that people, women especially, that's my clientele, they want to lose weight. So it's a catch-22 for a non-diet practitioner because the clients that you're attracting want to lose weight, but then at the same time, you're not going to put them on a diet. So I basically just teach them the fundamentals of, first of all, permission. Because if you don't feel like you have permission to eat something because you've been in a state of restriction for the past 10, 15, maybe 20 years, you don't think that you can eat anything that you want anytime you want because all types of fear come in. You know, like you're afraid that you're not going to be able to stop eating it. You think you're going to eat the whole thing. You think if you eat this thing, you're going to get fat or you're going to throw off, everything. But the truth is that once you give yourself complete permission to eat whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, you start to realize that you don't need to eat it. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. You do at that point, since you had permission to eat it, it's almost like your brain knows it doesn't have to, because you can have it anytime you want. It's when, you're growing up and your parents put the candy up really high so that you can't reach it. Well, at that point, you don't have any learning skills to self-regulate it.
Yes.
So it's the same type of thing. If you put the candy out for yourself to eat it, you might go overboard once or twice, or maybe you'll go overboard once a week. But in the grand scheme of things, you 99% of the time have given your body the right to choose whether it wants to eat it or not, because you've given it permission to have it in the first place. Yes. So that's what the foundation of what I do for my clients is. I teach them they can have permission to eat it. Once you give yourself permission, you shut down all of that noise in your brain, and there is less going on. There's less chaos, which gives you a chance to journal and to learn all of the other skills that I teach. So you can sit with yourself and actually hear your body tell you what you want. When I start off by telling clients that they're going to learn how to be intuitive, they're going to listen to their body, they're going to be able to give themselves permission, they're like, yeah, right.
No,
like
no,
you
tell me
did.
how many calories.
You're smiling.
Yeah, I know I am, because I'm like, that's great. So how many calories can I eat?
Right.
Like, that's the default,
What's
right?
the framework? So, and I don't think you'll mind me telling everybody that in a recent call that we had, that was one of the first things that you led with. You said, I think I'm ready to go back to tracking macros, as if that were our goal.
Yeah.
But that's not our goal. Our goal is to never have to track macros again. So if we're tracking macros, it's because that's what feels comfortable to you at the beginning, until we can get you off of that type of plan and you feel like you have enough, what's the word? We have enough capability within yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So immediately, as soon as you said that to me, I knew that there was something else going on that was making you fall back into this state of like voluntary restriction, and you needed to talk about what's going on.
I love what you just said.
The voluntary
dieting is voluntary restriction or deprivation. I would actually even say deprivation, because I think restriction is still palatable by disordered eating or obsessive dieting. Deprivation makes you look at it and go, shit, like, whoa, I'm actually depriving myself of the choice. That is the thing, right? So as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, there's so many things we could talk about, right? This is like longer than a podcast. But I think one of the things I wanted to say to you is, like, I remember like showing up at your door 2.5 years ago, and I had to, and this is the thing that people don't understand, is like this process takes a lot of work, but it takes a lot of work. It takes having trained professional people with you, such as like a psychologist or a proper psych, not just someone who's done like a certificate, like a proper trained psych. You've seen a proper trained psych for eating disordered eating. Then kind of moving out through, for a lot of us, even if we don't admit it, it's an addiction, because what it's doing is it's depriving trust, it's depriving compassion, it's depriving joy. It's hitching your wagon to an ocean of shame and guilt. And it's creating neurochemical pathways in our brain that are restrictive, depriving, emotionally connected to perfection, which no one ever does, and release from deprivation. So, and the problem is I think it's pandemic. Like, I think that this culture in women it's in every culture. It is pandemic.
Yep.
And it's killing women's souls. Even if you don't even if you just screw the body, it's like, whatever you weigh, let's just erase that, right? Like, I'm kind of going up in the soapbox, but I truly believe, and we talk about this a lot, that constant dieting is killing women's ability to step into their own divine gifts.
Yeah, we are constantly encouraged to shrink and restrict and deprive and not know how to listen to ourselves and our bodies. And it's just it is such a terrible thing, because it doesn't just restrict your eating, it restricts everything. Yeah, what happens is you start focusing all of your energy on the restriction of food and what did I eat and how many calories was it and how many points and what are my macros and what do I have left and what can I eat tomorrow. that's all you start thinking about. You can't focus on joy. You can't focus on presence. You can't focus on your relationships with your children and your husband. You can't focus on anything outside of that because everything is now devoted to your food and your eating and how many calories and points you have left. It's just completely, it takes over your entire life. And, you know, it's even, people even will say, well, I don't restrict what I eat. I just watch what I eat. Well, that's the same thing. You know, you're still putting energy into not eating. And that's the whole thing. Yeah. If you're putting energy into not eating, you can't focus your energy on the eating part. You know, like you can't sit with yourself and ask your body what it needs.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a foreign language to some people, but you do eventually learn how to do this when you practice the other soul enriching things that you have to do as part of this whole healing process. You know, it's not just one thing you have to do. That's the whole thing. People want a very easy fix and they want it to be quick. But this is a process that you have to go through to try to unravel all of the thoughts and the feelings that are connected to each other around food. Because 99% of the time, it's not the food. The food is not the problem. It's the other things your brain has now tied into that restricting and controlling and all of those behaviors.
Yeah, totally.
And once you can unravel all of those things, you give yourself complete permission to eat whatever you want, when you want. And that doesn't mean you're going to blow up and you're going to gain 300 pounds. I mean, you know, I've been doing this now for 12, 13 years. I've had 3 children. I am active and healthy and I work out, and my weight, even through the pregnancies, well, I mean, I gained weight during my pregnancies, but my weight before and after pregnancies has been very stable. I do eat M&Ms when I feel like eating M&Ms. I eat, you know, dessert if I want to. I don't have any kind of food allergies, so I don't have to watch any of those types of things. I don't have to worry about gluten or corn or anything like that. But you can maintain a stable weight as long as you've done the work to figure out why. Why am I eating? Am I feeding hunger or am I feeding loneliness? Am I feeding boredom? Am I feeding hunger? You know, these are constant things that you have to go back and check in with yourself on. And it gets easier as you practice it, but you do have to stay aware.
You do have to stay aware. And I think the thing is that I think it's all or nothing. You know, I don't think it's like, oh, I'm going to do it kind of, and I've done that. Like I've half-assed it. And I think after last week's call, when we chatted, because I've hired Elisabeth to help me even after weight loss surgery. I mean, like, are you joking me? But like, I knew that going into weight loss surgery, and we talked about it, and like my psych and I talked about it a lot, was that it was just a tool in my recovery from food addiction. It was not going to save me. It wasn't going to fix me. I mean, it helps that I can't eat 7,000 calories in a setting because I physically cannot. But it doesn't mean that every single one of the triggers has like just miraculously evaporated. Like that doesn't happen because it's just a physical change in my body. Yes, I'm lighter. Yes, I've lost weight, but there was a point, even like the last call, where I pretty much plateaued for 12 weeks. And that was actually the trigger. I thought, well, I should be losing more weight. And I could hear my surgeon in the back of my mind saying I should lose more weight, which is always really helpful. I mean, I'm so aware, but there are like, it's just that next layer of consciousness, that next layer of unraveling. And what has happened is that since we've been on the call, I've actually started to lose weight again because my body was holding on to it because I was holding on to stuff. And so then I just let myself go, like not myself go, but I just let myself be. Like the other day I got off of, just as a prime example, like the other day I got off of a shift at work and I was like, I really want chocolate. And I hadn't had chocolate for like a whole week. And I was like really making myself think, is this emotional? Do I really want it? Do I really not want it? We just didn't have any in the house. And so I was like, no, I really want chocolate. So I ended up buying chocolate, 2 different types from the store. And I had it and like I could have eaten a ton of it. And before I would have just plowed through both of those blocks of chocolate. And I had 2 and I was like, that's enough. Like that actually, beyond that would have been just binging, would have just been escaping. Yeah. And so I'm learning, I still do it. Like I still have tendencies where I'm like, I want to eat a whole bag of, kettle corn, or, I really just want to sit and eat all night long. That is just me learning again to figure out ways to allow myself to emotionally regulate, which is one of the things that you talked about. But I just want people to understand that even though I physically look transformed because I've had weight loss surgery and I'm doing the work, doesn't mean that shit doesn't still come up, because it does. It probably always will. It's just that the impact of it is less. The understanding of it is more. And I kind of, in a weird, twisted way, like it, because it reminds me of how much I have changed. It's like, okay, have kettle corn. And when you have it, you are conscious that you are not going to do the shame and guilt cycle. You're just either going to eat it because you're stress eating and you just let it go, or you're just going to enjoy it. Like, those are your two choices. The other choice is not to start punishing yourself for how bad of a person you are. And I can't believe that even after weight loss surgery, you're still doing this kind of stuff. Like, I don't go there anymore.
Right.
That has been a huge, I guess, like, when I think about how did I detox, like truly detox, I think it was raising consciousness, getting proper treatment if you need it, getting a coach like yourself. But the biggest internal change for me initially was choosing self-compassion over shame and guilt. Full stop. Because I couldn't get through deprivation without compassion.
Yeah, and you have to get to a point of, I always tell my clients, you have to be beholden to yourself. Like, you have to look at yourself and be completely accepting of where you are, at what point you're at. You have to almost thank your body for doing what it's done for you up until this point. You have to say, okay, thank you, body, for holding on to this weight, because obviously I needed that protection.
Yes.
But I don't need it anymore. So could you release this from me, because it's not serving me anymore.
I love that.
And that is such a worthwhile exercise for people to do. And they're like, I can't believe how great that felt, just to acknowledge my body for that and just to let it go. And, you know, we were talking about, just to go slightly backwards, we were talking on our last call about how, what you just said, I can't believe that I had weight loss surgery and I'm still doing this. Well, I now have I've realized that this is the perfect kind of dialogue to have with weight loss surgery clients, because you've already come to this point. Like, you've literally already tried every other thing. You have tried the most extreme thing that you could to lose weight. But in the aftermath of it, you realize that your thoughts are still the same. So for a lot of people, there is a rude awakening at that point, because they're like, wait a minute, I'm still feeling exactly the way I feel, but my body has changed so much. Like, how do I reprogram my brain to catch up with my body? And so now I have a few clients who are in that same situation. And this is a great dialogue for you to have with yourself after weight loss surgery, because you realize the quickest way possible that even though you lost the weight, you're still the same person.
Amen.
You know, and there's a lot of other things that come along with that too, but that's for another conversation, because there's a whole other realm of thought that comes along with weight loss surgery after you've lost weight. But without giving yourself permission to release the weight and to move on after your body has protected you for so long with the weight, that gives you just even more of a boost forward to lose more weight. Because like you said, you do plateau after a while and you start to revert back to the old habits and the old thoughts, because that's safe for your brain to do.
Yeah.
You know, so without a little bit of boost and, you know, coaching and psychotherapy and all of that, without that, might not get as far as you would otherwise.
I totally agree. So we can't undo all of disordered eating today, but some of the things I wanted to just kind of touch on was this idea of compassion and this idea of trust. Another thing that's been, and we talked about permission earlier, which is, in that, even when you said that, I could feel it rise up in me, which was interesting. I was like, whoa, there's still a little bit left in there that I need to deal with, right? Like, can I eat everything? Should I eat everything? When can I eat everything? And it's like, when I give myself permission, like, one of the biggest triggers for me is like going to like a potluck, or like when you have like a big, they call it a bring a plate here in Australia. As a side note, when they first said bring a plate, I thought I was supposed to literally like bring my own plate, but no, it's like bring a plate of food. So like I showed up to this potluck with like my own plate.
You're like, I've got my plate, I'm ready to eat.
And they're like, oh, you're supposed to bring food. And I was like, oh,
why is it empty?
Yeah. So you mean it's a potluck? Yeah. Anyways. That's a whole
You're
other
like, no, I just wanted to fill it.
yeah.
Contribute.
I'm like, I am an eater. Like, I am here to serve you. But yeah, that's just funny. But I think one of the things that has been important to me, so permission, compassion, which then is the antithesis or the opposite of shame and guilt. Like, how do you get out of shame and guilt? You start to unearth compassion. But one of the hardest things for me still is self-regulation. And that is probably linked to the fact that I abused exercise for so long. You know, we're talking about exercise was literally only negative calories, so I could eat more, or more points I could eat, or it was all punishment. It was all punishment. And I'm still not ready. Like, I know that I've been conscious of this for over a year now, where I'm like, am I ready? Nope, I'm not ready yet. Am I ready? Nope, I'm not ready yet. So trying to be mindful about slowly going back into exercise, or going back into exercise in a head place of wanting to do it. So I think when we talk about exercise and this idea of self-regulation, a lot of it is that what you talked about before is that we don't even know that we're unconscious about the emotional triggers. And so it's going to be a process for people when they decide to go on this journey. It's not a quick fix, because you're basically like, you're not ripping back, you're compassionately pulling back each layer. And for many of us, I'm sure you included, which you talked about in the previous podcast, it's like, this is generational. Like, this isn't just like, wow, how did this happen? And for some of us, it might be like that, but it's generational, especially in my instance. And it's also, you're packing on a whole bunch of subconscious crap in society. And so that self-trust and like self-regulation is actually really an important part. And you can't learn how to self-regulate. You can't learn how to self-trust. You can't even unearth compassion if you're still dieting. Like, it's impossible. Mm-hmm. Like, it is an impossible thing to do, because they are the complete opposite. They evoke completely different things. But I wanted to actually talk to you really quickly before we go today about joy, because I follow you on Instagram and stuff. And I think there's a difference between like, I just love my food. Like, when I hear I love my food, if it's not in like a joy aligned way, it's actually like, I love my food because it makes me like feel good, because I'm looking for something. I just love my food. Whereas for you, what I've watched you do is like, you legitimately love food, and you love the experience of food. You love eating food. You like trying new things. Like, I think we both have like an Asian heart. Like, I always say to you, let's go to Thailand and Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia and just like travel through and eat everything. Right, eat our way through Southeast Asia. I would love for you to maybe talk about either your own journey with how did you like unearth joy with food? Like, once you've deprived that, like, let's just be honest here. Diet food is disgusting. It's not real. And one of the things that I've really struggled with post dieting is like, I just remember making these like salads, like this big. How big can I make something that has the least amount of calories? Or, there's so many people that glorify like the 100-calorie dessert, the 100-calorie packet, so you can have something naughty for like 100 calories. It's not even real. So I guess I'd love for you just to talk about either your journey and actually learning how to find joy in food, or how you kind of work with clients, either way.
Well, so for me, it's easy because, like you said, I do love food. I love cooking food. I love looking at food. I love grocery shopping. Like, I basically love everything having to do with food. My degree in school is heavily focused on cooking labs and preparing food and learning how to properly prepare food. I like fermenting food. I just like food. So for me, it's easy. I find cooking and chopping vegetables to be really relaxing. That's actually like part of my meditation practice. Most people, you either love to do it or you hate to do it. So for me, it's a really easy thing to do. But that's not everybody's thing. It doesn't have to be everybody's thing. You can find your own meditation and other things. But I automatically find joy in food. When people don't automatically find joy in food, I don't try to get, my clients to start learning how to cook. Usually I'll tell them, you have 5 recipes in the hopper that you always have ingredients for, and that's what you go to. You get your food cooked and done and everything is good, and then you go find your joy after you eat.
I love that.
But there should be some type of mindful approach to eating, even if you don't like to cook. Like you should have some type of idea what you're going to be eating. It's meal planning, basic meal planning type of stuff. So that when you sit down and you look at your food, it's something that you want to eat. So, you're not sitting in front of something that you're not even excited to eat. And it's also something that's nourishing for you to keep you full until the next time you're going to eat. So, that could look like multiple things for multiple people. For me, it's maybe a little bit more involved, but still pretty simple. I don't really go overboard with preparing food or anything. I have 3 kids and I work. I don't really have time to be doing a lot of heavy cooking. But when I look at the food on my plate, I want to feel excited to eat it. I want to feel joy around the experience of eating. I want to be looking at my kids enjoying the food that they're eating, because then I feel more joyful about what I'm eating. And really, when it comes down to it, the food that you're eating, like, you should feel excited about it and you should feel like it's going to be fun to eat. If you don't feel like your food is fun, then you're wasting your time. You're doing it wrong, and you have to figure out a new way to do it, because it's just like anything in life. We don't want to do it if it's not fun. It's the same thing with exercise.
And the same thing with that, it's like, I still don't know what I love to eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're enjoying exploring it, though.
I'm learning. And so this is like another layer of the recovery of like going, when you say like, I'm so excited to eat it, I'm like, there's so many times when I was never excited to eat. I was literally just eating because I was so hungry, because I was depriving myself so much. Or I could put the most amount into a bowl possible with the least amount of points. It had nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with the joy of the experience. It had everything to do with relieving the deprivation or finding a way to escape. It was either or. It was either deprivation or it was escape, because I didn't know how to regulate. And so, like, if I were to say to you, like, what do I love to eat? It's like, wow. And when you learn what you love to eat, you actually will pick food that your body can digest, which is the other interesting thing too for me, right? Like, your body knows what it can digest well. Like, I don't digest bread well. I can eat it, but I don't do bread well. So I don't normally have an inkling for toast unless I'm like, I'm so hungry, I don't have any time, I'll just have toast. Like, it's not because I want to eat that out of joy. It's mostly because I'm eating it out of time crunch or just a lack of connection in general. So one of the things I still have to work on is figuring out, okay, so what do you like to eat? What does taste good to you? Overcoming, I don't have enough time to cook. Like, those type of things are still the cycle, the addiction cycle that I'm still working through to bring consciousness to. But I think that is such an important part of your recovery, or just detoxing from dieting, is like, do you enjoy what you eat? And bringing fun into it, because so many people that have been dieting for a long time have no joy in food at all. None.
Totally. And, like, part of the reprogramming process that I do with clients, usually, especially if you've been in a state of restriction, we did this a couple of years ago, is try multiple foods. Like, try foods that you haven't eaten maybe ever, or try foods that you haven't eaten because you've been restricting. Try the foods you haven't tried in a really long time and just see, because a lot of the time what happens is you haven't tried something and you've put it on the forbidden list, and then you go back and you try it and you're like, oh God, I don't even like that. Like that for me 12 years ago, that was grape soda. Like, I had this huge fear. I know, right? Grape soda. I had this huge fear around like drinking grape soda. Like, oh, I'm going to drink the whole bottle of grape soda. But then as part of my process, I went back and I tried grape soda and I was like, oh, this tastes horrible. What am I doing? And same thing like with Cheetos, which those crunchy Cheetos, turns out I hate those too. Like, there were a lot of things that I was forbidden myself from eating. And then it turned out that I didn't even like them anyway. Because this was 15-year-old me who would sit there in front of the TV and eat bags upon bags of Cheetos and regular Lay's potato chips and drink grape soda. Not, 29-year-old me that was seeking treatment. So part of you gets stuck in that like place where you were when you started your eating journey.
So true.
So, those are all things that you unravel during the process. But, it's easy to get yourself stuck into that mindset of, I don't have enough time to eat. I don't have enough energy to do this. But that really is taking a victim role. So that's like putting your energy into not, instead of taking the energy back and going, yes, I do have time to do this because my body deserves to be nourished. My body deserves to have a balanced meal, and it deserves to eat what it wants to eat. So, every meal that I eat, especially in the morning, like when I've just woke up, I will just kind of stand there and like go, okay, well, what do I want to eat today? And I don't actually pick anything up and eat it until I've made a decision, because I'm not going to get anything out of it. I would rather wait until I'm really, really hungry and figure it out, which doesn't work for you because you can wait literally hours upon hours before you'll actually eat. Right. And then you're hungry, really, really hungry. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'll wait. And if I haven't made a decision or if nothing sounds good yet, then I'll just hold off and I'll wait another 10 minutes and I'll check back in. Okay, is there anything that sounds good yet? But I won't eat something just because it's there or, because it's convenient to eat. If I don't want it, I won't eat it.
Yeah, I love that. So I guess, Elisabeth, what have been maybe one or two books or people that you've absolutely loved in your healing journey that you could share with our audience, and then tell us where people can find and connect with you?
Okay. One of my favorite people, which I've only recently discovered, but she's like number one for me right now. She's actually Australian. She's an advanced practicing dietitian in Australia. Her name is Fiona Willer. She has a podcast, and she actually has a non-diet practicum that she offers for dietitians and therapists. So she teaches a non-diet modality of her own, and she helps non-diet practitioners like me to put some format around their programs with their clients, which is really, really helpful for non-diet practitioners. So she has a podcast, like I said, she's a Willer, Willer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she's really great. There's a really good book that I recently read. I'm actually going to do a book club in my Facebook group on this. It's called If Not Dieting, Then What?
Love it.
And that book is so good. It's so, so good. It just kind of breaks down like what your brain does when you put it into a place of not dieting. Because that's what a lot of my clients say. Like, okay, well, if I'm not on a diet, I'm just kind of left to my own devices. I don't trust myself. So this book breaks into that, and it's such a good book. Just check it out. So I have two Facebook groups. My first Facebook group is the Emerging Lady Empath, which focuses a lot on my energy healing stuff, and I do intuitive wellness readings and stuff like that. And my second Facebook group is called Diets Are Crap. That is my group that focuses on the eating stuff and how I feel about diets. I put it right out there. There's no cut cards on that one. So that I share a lot of my nutritional stuff in there. I actually just did a video about how to ferment foods at home. I just give basic information there about how to stay healthy and keep your diet nutritious.
And how can people coach with you?
You can coach with me. You can find me on Facebook just through one of those groups, or you can check me out on just my regular website, Elisabethscoaching.com. And that's Elisabeth with an S instead of a Z.
And you coach with anyone around the world?
I coach with anyone around the world. I have 2 clients in Australia, which is interesting. So yes, I'm worldwide.
Well, you are a beacon of just, I think, a conversation that is practical, relatable, digestible, but so needed for women. And I think that a lot of the kind of anti-dieting rhetoric is so woo-woo that people who are in the trenches just think, I'm never going to get there. Like, there's no way in hell that I could get to intuitive eating. And I think what I have found since reconnecting with you is you are the bridge. You have the tool set that people who are like, I can't jump without like all this safety around me, which is all just fake stuff. But it's very hard to look at like, how do I, like, I'm an intuitive eat when you have dieted your whole life. You can't just switch just like that. I mean, you probably could, but you have to be very hyper aware, and it doesn't work for most people. So you become this bridge between, and I can say to people who are listening that you are incredibly patient. There's no shame and guilt in any conversation I've ever had with you. You're incredibly emotionally available. And I think that as a coach, and what you're doing is really allowing women the time to marinate through this process at their own speed, which is exactly what you need. So thank you so much for sharing with us, for opening the conversation. There's so much more to talk about, but I think that hopefully this gives our listeners a little bit of an idea of like, okay, well, there is hope. There are ways I can do this. I'm just going to slowly and gently work with my own path. So thank you so much, Elisabeth, and I'm sure I'll have you on again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. If you'd like more information about myself, my journey, my public speaking engagements, or life coaching with me, please head to my website, mishpope.com. If you can kindly leave me a beautiful review on iTunes, I would be forever grateful. I can't wait to connect again in the next episode.